Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just click the link in the show description to support now.
You're locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke loves Rasslin.
And there is no one that does it better than
your host.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Breaking news. Duke Loves Rasslin listeners, I can't believe this. Literally right before I hit record to do this latest episode, we found out that the WWE parted ways with both of their co-presidents, which is just insane for a worldwide entertainment company to just literally cut the heads off the top there and start over, basically. This is just crazy. But you know something? I said, listen, I'm not going to sit here and play games. Let me reach out to somebody who I knows can get the inside scoop, shed some light on what's going on, who's been historically covering WWE from a corporate perspective in addition to everything else. So without further ado, literally the most hated man in pro wrestling because he knows his stuff. Welcome back, Brad Shepard. Brad, how are you, bro?
I'm good. My phone is blowing up as we were talking about off air. Yeah, it's just a crazy time right now. But yeah, I'm doing well otherwise.
What the heck is going on from what you can gather? And folks, like I said, bear with me here because literally this stuff is developed in the last hour. So whatever you hear from Brad is stuff he's getting up to the second here. So bear with us here. But Brad, what's your understanding of what's been going on so far?
Yeah, great point. You know, the story is evolving in real time, and it'll continue to evolve, right? And so I just want to throw that out there because it is a real time happening now thing. But with that being said, it's really clear that this was an impulse decision. Multiple sources are telling me that this appeared to be impulse and out of left fields. And that this was a Vince McMahon decision. And Stephanie and Paul Levesque, her husband, Triple H, were not consulted beforehand about the decision. And they're mad.
Oh, wow. So is this some sort of grab for control again from the old man, so to speak, here? Or it's like he wants to establish who the big dog is in the room, and that's why he made something like this? And I understand this is just your interpretation based on the information that you're being given here. But what do you say here? Do you think it's something like that?
It definitely could be. I mean, when you look at multiple sources talking about the XFL and the tie-in WWE has used with WWE's resources into the XFL, and I'm told that George and Michelle were against that. They were against the reboot of the XFL and felt like it would lead to WWE resources going into the XFL. And what have we seen? We've seen WWE employees fill positions at the XFL.
They're not allowed to actually do something like that, right? They can't use WWE resources for this other company, especially considering WWE is a publicly traded company. Am I right about that?
Yeah, essentially you're right. And I don't know the exact wording and whether they would, meet the legalities of that or not, but it's definitely got to be somewhere around that careful gray line, for sure. So it's a very interesting situation, and I'm told that the reason given officially was the results, fiscal results coming up that'll be reported soon, which I'm told they were bad, and that wasn't the exact language that was used. But I guess I can use profanity on this podcast if it's a quote, right?
Oh, absolutely. Let it fly, bro. Let it fly.
Okay. Yeah. So, the exact words used to describe the newest quarterly report was, quote unquote, fucking terrible. And to me, if that does turn out to be the case, and certainly that's the internal belief, I look at what has been pushed within the WWE that's led to poor quarterly results. And again, this all ties back to finances and business strategy going forward as we head into the XFL era, et cetera. But you have to look at in the WWE product itself and what are they pushing to get these bad quarterly results. And there's some themes in there. And if nobody's willing to be honest and look at those and say, maybe this is why our TV doesn't have the ratings it should, or et cetera, et cetera. That's what they have to look at, and that's what people have to be honest about, and that's what people have to draw attention to.
That's a pretty interesting take on that, and you're absolutely right. From a business perspective, you have to take a look at what have we been doing recently that is different from what we've been doing previously, and whatever the changes are, you have to take. Are you spending more money on certain things? Are you missing certain elements? Are you putting too much into other elements? These are all great points. Can't argue with that. So my question to you, where do you think they go from here? I mean, it's not like you can just pluck a president of a worldwide entertainment company that's worth billions of dollars just out of thin air. I mean, what do you think happens next?
It's a great question. I'm told they have nobody immediately in line for that. In fact, I'm told that it's possible Paul Levesque may be needed to, quote unquote, step up. And obviously that they have an interim person. That's not what that means. But obviously in a corporate structure, if you have someone in a really important high level role leave, you're going to have to pick up some slack. And so with his current duties, such as NXT, that presents an interesting quandary. So we'll see if there's any impact to NXT because of that. But it's really interesting right now, the entire dynamic, in my opinion, with Vince and his family in executive roles in the company and how that would play out. Again, it's believed to have been an impulse decision. And we look at the quarterly results are coming, and I'm told they're not good. So I think where do they go from here? You have to look at, obviously, the XFL part, as that is literally getting ready to launch in just over a week. And so you've got the timing of that, and then you've got the quarterly results as well. You have to find new positions, new people for those positions. But that's a tough one. Again, there's nobody necessarily that they have in mind to fill it immediately. And so it's just going to be real interesting how Vince is able to get people in those key roles and do the TV stuff where he's been heavily invested in SmackDown, for example, and also the XFL just starting, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, there's a lot of corporate dynamics here. They're going to be really fascinating to watch.
And like I said, I know that you're getting up to the minute information there, so really appreciate you taking the time out to join us here and update our audience on what the heck is going on so far. Listen, Brad, let everybody know how they can reach you, how they can read your stuff, how they can find you on social media, listen to your show, the whole 9 yards.
At the Brad Shepard on Twitter, that's SHEPARD. And of course, I have a podcast every week, the Oh You Didn't Know Wrestling Show. If you haven't heard of it, we're available pretty much everywhere. Just search us and check it out. Download, subscribe, rate, etc., all that good stuff. We have a Patreon as well, patreon.com/OYDKWS. You get a lot of cool additional content if you join for as low as $4 a month.
His name is Brad Shepard. Once again, Brad, thank you for this amazing update here.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
So we're going to keep this train going, folks. I mean, you just heard from Brad and some great inside information, and I figured, you know what? Let's expand upon the conversation with the man from the pop culture website Black Rabbit, the well-respected Lovell Porter. Lovell, you haven't been on the show a lot because you're such a big-time star out there, but as soon as the WWE's in trouble, now suddenly you want to talk, huh?
Yeah, I got to put on my cape and, as you would call them, neckbeards online. I got to put on my cape and cape up for the WWE because, since nobody else will.
Well, listen, the neckbeards and the humanoids, they're certainly running wild right now. As far as they're concerned, the WWE's in full meltdown mode, and they're not going to be able to recover from this because, there's big problems going on, huh?
I mean, no. Okay, so to me, as far as the WWE is concerned, I could have sworn they're still posting record numbers everywhere except for the Nielsen ratings, which most people don't understand, which is hilarious how every Wednesday like to quote them. They have no idea what they mean or how they work and how they actually relate to business. If those ratings were that freaking important, Fox wouldn't have paid $1 billion for SmackDown. But a lot of people, that's lost on a lot of folks. But yeah, I mean, even with this, you said you were talking to Brad earlier, there was, this Variety article that goes into pretty great detail about what's going on with the WWE. I mean, I don't necessarily think this is a sign of trouble. Anytime there's a shakeup at the top, stock prices fall. So I think people freaking out as far as that's concerned. I think the average fan really shouldn't pay that much attention. What do you think?
Oh, I agree with you there. I'm not going to spend too much time questioning Vincent Kennedy McMahon. You know, he's a good friend of mine.
I've heard several times from you.
Yes, exactly. Well, from me, because it's true. I feel like he's going to do what's best for business. So if he felt like the people who he entrusted to be the co-presidents of his company, which is, I believe, is the first time that's happened. I mean, traditionally, there's been one president. You know, it's him or Linda, what have you. This whole co-president business is interesting. But I feel like if he felt they just weren't going in a direction that he could believe in, then yeah, you gotta cut the head off the snake and start from the beginning, so to speak, right?
That's how business works. And again, Joe Q, average wrestling fan, has no idea. So it's hilarious looking at some of the takes online, and like even in this Variety piece that I know you read as well, right?
Yeah, I take a look at that article. In fact, I know that you sent it out to a couple of people, and it found its way to me, which I appreciate. Shout out to Variety. They got direct quotes from Vince and everything. Yeah. But yeah, I read the article.
Yeah, Vince, you know, anytime a situation like this happens, as long as there's not too much animus, whoever made the decision or whoever, you know, the real head of the snake is, so to speak, they're always extremely complimentary of the people on their way out the door. I believe it was, I don't have their last names, but in Vince's quote, he just said something along the lines of he wants to thank George and Michelle for, you know, their 10 plus years of service, yada, 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 and contributions. This is literally just a matter of wanting to go in a different direction. You know, does WWE have more competition now? Sure. But at the same time, it's a company that's constantly reinvented themselves. So to me, this move, it really isn't that big of a surprise. And again, I don't think it's indicative of anything sinister or major that we need to be concerned with.
Well, speaking of that, of course, again, the humanoids and the neckbeards, they want to make some outlandish claims. So now the new thing is, well, AEW somehow has something to do with Vincent Kennedy McMahon getting rid of his co-vice presidents of WWE. Let me just tell you something out there, folks. In no way, shape, or form is All Elite Wrestling competition for World Wrestling Entertainment. You're literally talking about a worldwide entertainment brand. They literally are one of the top 2,000 websites visited in America. Just think about that for a second. And I think they're one of the top 3 or 4,000 websites in the world that's visited on a daily basis. So just put that in perspective, folks. WWE has no issues here with competition as it relates to All Elite Wrestling. They got a long way to go. So don't pull that crap. And I'll tell you too, Porter, because I don't know. Don't you pull that crap either and try to make it seem like AEW has anything to do with this.
Listen, you have absolutely nothing to worry about for me as far as AEW is concerned. I tried as far as that company goes. I covered it for a few weeks. I even had a press pass and went to one of their events that they surprisingly, for whatever reason, decided to not allow the media to speak to any of the wrestlers or executives, which was the weirdest of flexes, especially with a new budding company. You would think they'd want to get out as much press as humanly possible. Maybe it's a situation where the press that they were there, that they invited, maybe they didn't feel like they can control them. I don't know. That's just a going theory as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, I know this isn't the part of your show where we're talking about AEW, but I am totally out on that show. I'm sure we could talk about that at a later time, because it's not important right now, but still.
Well, that's still an interesting point, though. And we can talk about that. I mean, what is it, if you were to just list one or two things, one or two reasons why you feel that way, because that's a pretty strong take. What is it about AEW Dynamite that has turned you off so much?
One of the biggest things is the fact that literally almost nothing that happens on that show makes any sense whatsoever. Now, I know that's a strange statement when referring to pro wrestling, but for example, they have, as Jim Cornette lovingly calls them, the Dork Order, which is supposed to be this crazy mystical cult or whatever. But then you have whatever the hell Brandy Rhodes calls her group. Then you also have the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. It's the same gimmick repeated over and over again with a different coat of paint on it. Like, it literally makes no sense. Having, let's take a look at the women's division. You have someone like, a beast like Nyla Rose, running around. Even someone like Britt Baker, who I'm not a huge fan of, but at the same time, it makes a hell of a lot more sense to put your title on someone who you can market to a United States audience and build your division around, instead of someone who is clearly just friends with Kenny Omega. The nepotism that happens as far as this company is concerned is way worse than anything we've ever seen in the WWE. And AEW just started. They branded themselves as an alternative to the WWE, but they're literally trying to out WWE the WWE. I don't understand why nobody sees this.
I take a look at a situation like a Nyla Rose, where you completely botched what you could have. Nyla Rose is a mix between Vader and Aja Kong. Mm-hmm. I mean, just an unstoppable force that should never be taking bumps, that should never be taken off her feet. She should have steamrolled all over the competition, won the championship, and then you could have built up a babyface from underneath who somehow, some way comes up and finally slays the beast. That's just basic storytelling, right?
Yeah, and it could have even, if they're so in love with Riho, it could have even been Riho who did this. Like,
and they completely botched it, right?
Totally.
And I'll say another thing just to piggyback on that, because we saw this on AEW Dark the other day, where Nyla was in there with someone, and I'm not even going to say her name because I'm embarrassed by her display. The young lady is doing Flippy-mania. Mm-hmm. Nyla Rose is almost at the top of the ramp. She's so far away from the damn ring because she's taking a powder. And this young lady does Flippy-mania, jumps out of the ring as if she's trying to land on Nyla, and Nyla's so far away from her that you could barely even see her. It's like, what are you doing? And people want to blame Nyla for that move. Now, let me tell you something, Porter. This is reminiscent of when Nyla took on Rio that last time, and Rio damn near broke her own neck, and they wanted to blame Nyla for that as well. At what point do we start realizing that some of these ladies are spending too much time trying to get their stuff in, and they're not spending enough time trying to do basic storytelling? We can't blame Nyla for that.
Hold on. I have to throw that individual, she who shall not be named during your show. I have to toss her some bail money just for a second. How do we know that maybe she got a bell rung and she thought she was in a triple threat with Nyla Rose and John Cena? She was trying to hit John Cena. Who knew?
She can't see him, so that I can understand. Or maybe she did hit him, but we can't see him either.
We would never know. All a guy has to do is wave his hands and he disappears.
That's it. That must be it. But, I mean, it's just embarrassing. And let me tell you something. I called these guys out for a long time, as you know, and I feel like they should just cut me a check at this point because I'm doing their job for them. I told them the money match is Nyla Rose and Big Swole. How long have I been saying this, Porter?
I recall you saying that, yeah.
Even before she got in the company, I've been saying that is a money match. They should do what they got to do to get Ariel Monroe in there, Big Swole, and set her up with Nyla, and that could be a feud. You could get something going. Well, they finally put those women on TV yesterday, and you know something? It was the best match on the damn card. What a surprise.
Yeah, that's not shocking to me at all. Big Swole has more personality than half the men's roster, so, I'm happy that they finally signed her, and, she's getting to be featured a little bit. Maybe she'll get to lose to Riho next. Who knows?
But see, we say all these things, but then you have, and I heard what you said. I'm not even going to tell you that.
I know.
we say all these things, but then let's tie this back to WWE because, as you said, everyone wants to talk about Nielsen ratings, which they don't even understand. That's a whole other story. AEW is consistently defeating NXT and the Nielsen ratings, at least the initial ratings that come out, right?
Sure.
That's
not surprising.
Which is not surprising.
No.
When you look at the demographics, though, let me dig into this for a second.
Sure.
You look at an AEW crowd that they show on TV, or that they show there, you see pictures from the live events, you see pictures from Jericho Cruise, and then you look at an NXT crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any major differences there? Because I sure as hell do.
I think I know where you're going with this, but I'll go based off of what I think personally seems a little bit more diverse. It's a tad bit.
In every way, well, whether we're talking men and women, whether we're talking people
Children.
of color, whether we're talking just even the way that people look. I mean, legitimately, and the average AEW crowd looks like a humanoid convention. And I'm not afraid to say that, okay? Now, if anyone wants to take issue with that, by the way, then go look up the definition of humanoid, okay? How derogatory am I being by calling somebody a half human, half machine? Figure it out. Does it make sense? Maybe. It makes sense to me. So I'm just going to leave it there. It looks like a friggin' humanoid convention.
Yeah, the AEW crowd looks like the group of people that everybody thought was going to go nuts and go crazy and start killing folks after seeing the Joker movie. Let's just call it what it is.
100%. 100%. And when you look at an NXT crowd, it's like the United Nations. You see a little bit of everything in that crowd, and you see a very significant amount of female representation in there, which, go figure, NXT, they actually show a tremendous amount of respect for their female competitors, and they have multiple women's matches, and they're in main events, and, they actually matter. Okay, they're being treated like they matter on their card, as opposed to an AEW card where it's like the women have to fight and claw and scratch just to get on the TV show, and then when they're put on the TV show, every little thing that they do that could be perceived as wrong, suddenly they're the worst thing in the world. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. But what do you make of this whole ratings thing that no one really understands anyway? What do you make of this AEW seemingly beating NXT every week?
So here's the thing. AEW Dynamite is AEW's flagship show. WWE NXT TV is WWE's third show behind Raw and SmackDown. So, excuse me. So that's something you want to keep in mind when looking at how many eyes have on it. One of the biggest things that I don't think people realize as far as this quote-unquote war is concerned, NXT is a show that's existed entirely on the WWE network until this past year, 2019, when it was, they made the deal with USA to have it broadcast there. There are a large number of individuals, including myself, if I didn't cover it, who probably would continue to not watch NXT live because you have the option of A, watching it on the network, or B, watching it via DVR. So if you've been preconditioned to watch a show via the WWE network at your leisure, you may continue to do that regardless of whether or not the fact that it's been extended to 2 hours and put on USA. There are folks a lot of people have cut the cord and don't actually have cable. That's another thing it gets lost in this argument as well. Those individuals who are wrestling fans have, if they're in the NXT, they've probably been watching on a network, and they probably continue to do so. So for me, if we're going to talk about ratings, if you want to be fair about it, if fair is a thing, I know that's the place where they judge pigs or what have you, and I hate saying that word, but if you want to be fair about it, you have to look at NXT's numbers on USA. You also have to look at their numbers on the WWE network. How many subscribers does the WWE network have right now? I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's a couple of million. So how many of those people are going in and watching NXT as well? There's no app or anything like that for them to watch AEW Dynamite on. So if you really want to realistically look at the impact of these shows, you have to keep that in mind as well. And nobody ever mentions that.
That's very well said. That's very well said, and I agree with you 100% because it just, one of the things that I find interesting is when I bring up the fact that NXT, as far as in-ring wrestling content, it has so much more in-ring wrestling content, both in the amount of time spent actually wrestling, and I think they actually feature more wrestling matches on a weekly basis.
That's possible.
When you take a look at the two shows from that perspective, and then you see people say, "Well, I don't really care about the wrestling. I want storylines, and I want what? What do you? It's wrestling, right?
It's called wrestling for a reason. It's not called storylines. You want storylines? Watch a goddamn movie.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, isn't the whole point? Well, yeah, we want to see the build up to the fight, but don't you want to see the fight? You know, can you imagine a Conor McGregor is jaw-jacking with somebody and they're carrying on and they're carrying on? Let's say, I don't know, Mastodol, the guy who is the BMF champion in UFC, right?
Mm-hmm.
He and Conor are going back and forth talking trash. Two biggest trash talkers around right now. All that's happening. Yeah, that's entertaining and that's exciting. You mean to tell me that you'd rather watch that than to see these guys beat the hell out of each other? How does that work?
We know what, come to think of it, you have to think about the generation we currently live in. These are the folks that watch your Love and Hip Hops, your Mob Wives and all that. All that is talk with no actual action. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's why, you have people online talking about they don't care about the wrestling. They just want to see the storylines. Maybe that's where we are as a society.
Well, the part that kills me the most is that when you take a look at all of the wrestling that's offered in 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can give honorable mention to NWA because that truly is an alternative. It's a throwback show. They pack a lot of action in less than an hour on a weekly basis. A lot of their matches are only about 5-6 minutes long, which is fine because they can get it done. With the exception of that, it's hard not to say that NXT is the best wrestling show on TV today.
I would agree with that.
And they have all of your favorite indie darlings. I mean, literally anyone who you've been talking about for the past 5 years is in NXT for the most part.
Right.
So I don't get it, except for the fact that because they're affiliated with the WWE, it's just cool to say we don't like that, right?
Considering, just scrolling through Twitter, it seems like it's the niche thing to do. So you're probably right.
And the problem with that is that it's sad because, perception can fool people into thinking that it's actually reality. And we know that the vocal minority that's online is just that. They're the vocal minority.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt that NXT is generating more money, definitely more profitable than AEW will ever be. I mean, again, you can look at facts. You know what I mean? Let's take a look at the ads that you watch during an NXT show versus an AEW show. Take a look at the brands. Who's advertising with them? Well, it's because of WWE. It's a legacy brand, whereas AEW is brand new. So, of course, WWE has stronger advertising going on when they're on TV. But the point remains. I mean, NXT is a more valuable property.
Yeah, I actually would question whether or not AEW is turning a profit right now. There's no way, right? It has to be just hemorrhaging money at this point.
Well, and I think that was expected. So it's not a surprise. I mean, I guess the idea is when you start a new company, of course, you got a good 3-year grace period. Now, mind you, they just signed a new contract. They extended their contract to, I think it's like 4 or 5 years. And because of that, they're supposed to be generating somewhere in the neighborhood of about $22 million per year, which would be great if that actually happens. But the fact still remains.
Seems pretty low for a. That doesn't seem low to you?
Well, for a weekly episodic TV show that happens all year round, yeah, it's pretty low.
Okay, I just thought it was going. I was like, wait, did I hear that right?
I mean, it's good. You're just starting off, so hey, look, if you're able to turn a profit in a year, that would be fantastic, or at least in year 2, that would be fantastic. Nothing wrong with that.
I don't want to come off as what the kids would call a hater or anything like that. It's just that kind of took me back there for a second.
Well, the fact still remains, though. It's crazy to think that with NXT, you're giving the humanoids exactly what they claim they've always wanted, and yet it's still not good enough as far as they're concerned.
Nope, they want a guy in a dinosaur mask, a quote unquote wrestler who's about as tall as my 11-year-old son. And the Dork Order. Yeah, that's what they want.
A woman's champion who looks like you have to card her to buy Sharpies at Walmart. I mean, legitimately, she's probably not. She looks like she's not old enough to even do that. So, but I digress. So in the end, is the sky falling, Porter? I mean, is
not at all
WWE change here? Are we going to have to sell all our WWE stock and try to find some other form of entertainment because this just isn't going to work out for us anymore?
So based on how I've seen these things work out, number one, the WWE is obviously not going anywhere. Number two, it's probably the time to buy the stock for the next few days, just from the standpoint of it'll dip for a few days and then it's going to pop right back up. That's just the way it works. Anytime there are any changes in upper management with any large publicly traded company, this happens. So again, this is not time for the guy from Mad Money to say sell, sell, sell or anything like that. It's buy, buy, buy time. Get in while you can. The sky is not falling. The WWE will be fine.
I feel so much better now. Wow, because I was literally about to sell everything here because, it's over. The jig is up. The jig is up for it,
Not at all.
And listen, just to answer everyone's been asking, so I'm just going to publicly say this right now. I have taken my name out of consideration for the next president of the WWE. I had to talk to my family and really spend some time soul searching to figure this out. But in the end, it's just not the right time. That doesn't mean that we can't revisit this at a future date. But for right now, I think it's best to take my name out of consideration and allow others an opportunity. So
I gotta ask. This is the $1 million question. I'm sure everybody who listens to the show is wondering, how did Vince take it?
He's disappointed. He definitely told me that he was disappointed, and I think his exact words, and this is exclusive, "Who the hell do you think you are?" But
pal, I think you're making a bad move.
I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't like to discuss my private conversations or anything like that. Anyway, Porter, now that we've pissed everybody off,
screw it.
Tell everybody how they can check out all of your stuff, reach you on social media, the whole 9 yards there.
The best way to hit me on social media is probably going to be via my Twitter, which is Above Average LLP, at Above Average LLP. You can check out the website, blackrabbit.com. That's BLAQUE rabbit.com. Just don't get confused there. I also am a contributor at WrestleZone.com. I handle the live coverage for Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and Impact. So you can check me out there as well.
And, before I let you go, Porter, I just want to say congratulations to you and Black Rabbit. You were one of the first people to feature the young lady, Michelle Evans, who, she was competing for that Maxim Cover Girl contest last year, and, she made it down to, I think it was either the semifinals or what have you there. She made it pretty far in the thing. You put her on blackrabbit.com, put her on the cover, helped her stay alive in that competition, and she didn't win the competition, unfortunately, but she's actually spun that into greater opportunities where she's got numerous major modeling contracts and deals, and she's on the cover of all these high-fashion magazines and all these other things in a very short amount of time. So I just want to congratulate you for that great eye for talent, and also your website, Black Rabbit. I mean, without that type of support, I just don't think she would have been put in a position to actually get noticed like that, because she said it herself, her network wasn't really that big in the beginning. So kudos to you and that website there. It's a great website. Oh,
thank you for that. I appreciate it. And anything I could do to help someone up and coming, at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, I root for everybody Black. So it is what it is.
Every now and then, folks, the breaking news is so strong, it's so significant that you just have to come right out of the gate with it. And that's what happened this week. I mean, hey, shout out to Brad Shepard, shout out to the well-respected Lovell Porter, both of those two guys giving us some great insight, great analysis of this situation, WWE, one of the top worldwide entertainment companies, changing presidents. They've got rid of their co-presidents. That's a big deal. And again, with Vince McMahon stepping away to spend more time on the the XFL, it's a big deal, right? I want to say NFL because I'm used to saying that, but XFL, big deal. Big deal. But is this sky is falling stuff? I don't think so. Some people probably will feel that way, but I don't think so. I think they'll be able to figure it out. It's one thing that history has shown us is that the WWE has a habit of bouncing back and figuring it out. So I don't expect this to be any different as long as Vince McMahon's alive. Now, if Vince McMahon is not around anymore, that's a whole other story. I have no faith in the rest of this crew here. Zero. I mean, obviously, Linda, I got faith in her. That may be it. But that's a whole other story. So, you know, it's just been an insane news day with that. And I'll tell you right now, I had a whole plan, a whole format. I had somebody was going to interview, all that good stuff. But it's like, this just took over, man, at the last minute. And it's just like, hey, it's the way it goes. You know? We have the Royal Rumble that just passed, and next week I'll go over some more information about that. I will say congratulations to MVP, who made a return to the WWE, and he was in the Royal Rumble match. No, he didn't win, but he was in the match, which is great. And then he wrestled his final match in WWE against Rey Mysterio, who is his young son's favorite wrestler, on Monday Night Raw. And his son was there both nights to see that. So that was pretty awesome. That was a great way to end that portion of your career. Ending it on your own terms. Good stuff. Congratulations to Keith Lee, who did a great job in the Royal Rumble. Brock Lesnar looked pretty good in there. Drew McIntyre won. Congratulations, Drew. Bianca Belair had a fantastic showing at the Royal Rumble, as did Shayna Baszler. In the end, Charlotte Flair won on the other end, but it's good stuff. And like I said, we'll go over the whole card next week. It just, you know, the news that happened with the WWE, that took over this week. So that was what it was. I will say this, though. There is just a crazy thing going on. And it's been going on for a little while here, but I have to touch upon this, folks. Let me transition out of WWE, AEW, any kind of talk like that. Noelle LaGraza, you know, Little Noelle, she's Big Vito's wife. She put together a video, like a mini documentary, an expose, whatever you want to call it there. And in it, she really detailed some of the treatment lately that's been happening to Big Vito. And, you know, everybody knows Big Vito. He's a guy, you know, he was in ECW and All Japan, and he was in the WWE and WCW. I mean, Big Vito wrestled everywhere, right? But he's part of that concussion lawsuit. And he's somebody that speaks up about CTE and the brains of the pro wrestlers. What would that look like? And what are the effects of all the trauma that they've experienced participating in this sport, right? Sports entertainment. So Noelle put together this video, and a portion of the video, she talked about a guy in particular, Chris Harrington. And I know of Chris Harrington, Mookie. You've heard the name mentioned on the show before, because Chris Harrington is one of the guys who developed WrestleNomics. Shout out to Brandon Howard Thurston III, good guy. I love WrestleNomics. They do a good job with the analysis of the business, the economics of pro wrestling. And I think Brandon Thurston in particular does a really good job. A lot of time for that guy. I don't know Chris too well. Nickname is Mookie. But I know that Noelle pointed out the fact that he released some information related to the concussion lawsuit. Chris Harrington. And some of the information was redacted, and she pointed out that he released some of the redacted stuff. specifically the address for Vito and Noelle. And Noelle, I mean, she's handicapped, folks. She's disabled. And she has a son who's disabled as well. Different way. And I guess some folks had showed up to their house and harassing them and all kinds of crazy stuff. They had to get the cops involved. I will just say this. I want to hear from Chris Harrington. Because this is a pretty significant, this is a very serious accusation that Noelle has put out there. And I need to hear from Chris Harrington. I want to know what the hell's going on here. Did he really release their address? Why would you do that? And if he didn't do it, then what's up? Why, you know, because that's a pretty significant accusation being thrown around. And listen, Chris is a executive with All Elite Wrestling now. I think that's a job he's gotten within the past year or so. Congratulations. I got to tell you, man, I just hope and I pray that he is not responsible for releasing people's private information like that, because if he is, that's pretty low. And it's unacceptable. So I reached out to Chris today. I haven't gotten a response back. And hey, look, maybe it was short notice. Maybe he didn't see the message. Who knows? We don't follow each other on social media, so it's possible that my message went into his other box. Who knows? But I reached out to him because I want to find out. And I bring this stuff up. Duke, why are you talking about this? I bring this stuff up because we got to watch ourselves here, folks. And we got to remember that these pro wrestlers are human beings with real lives and real concerns for safety and well-being. There are so many unstable people out there, people that have issues, man. And the last thing we want to do is put anybody in position where their safety is compromised because of us, right? You don't want to be responsible for that. I sure as hell don't want to be responsible for that. So it just, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. I hope and I pray that this is just a misunderstanding somehow. I don't see how it could be, but hey, who knows? Maybe this is just a misunderstanding, and you know, Chris Harrington is not responsible for what he's being accused of. I hope that's the case, and I hope it can be cleared up, because if not, what the hell are you doing? It's really troubling. And to stay on this whole Big Vito piece, I'll tell you, man, here's a guy that has done nothing but done what he could to bring awareness to a significant problem. You can't say that CTE is not a real thing and that concussions aren't a real concern and that these wrestlers aren't suffering from, at the very least, the concussion stuff. I mean, come on, at this point, we know that. Goodness great. Samoa Joe just had a concussion, right? Samoa Joe just had a concussion. I think it happened at the Royal Rumble. It's speculated that Kairi Sane had a concussion at the TLC pay-per-view. I mean, we know that this stuff happens, man. We know. And more needs to be done. I'm going to cover the Royal Rumble next week, like I said, but I will point out one thing. Beth Phoenix, her and her husband Edge, they both were in their respective Royal Rumbles. And shout out to Edge. He did come back. Look at that. Brad Shepard was right again. But Beth, in particular, she banged the back of her head on the post, the ring post, one of them. And bear in mind, the WWE ring posts are not traditional posts. They're larger. They're thicker. They have a stand on them. They're pretty interesting. They're pretty unique. But she banged the back of her head on this thing, and she started bleeding from the back of her head. And Beth Phoenix has a lot of hair, right? I don't know how much of it is real and how much of it is enhancements. You know, everyone gets the enhanced hair now, men and women. You know how that goes. But there was a lot of hair. And yet her head smashed against this ring post hard enough to split it, enough for it to bleed. So there's some head trauma there, right? She remained in that Royal Rumble match for at least another 20 minutes after that happened. And some of you out there, you really make me scratch my head. Well, she was checked on at least 7 times by the referees. What the hell does that mean? Did anybody move her hair out of the way and take a look at where the bleeding was originating from? See how deep the gash was? Well, they asked her if she's okay, and she said yes, so they let her continue. Why would you ever do that? Protect the athletes from themselves. What athlete's going to say, yeah, take me out of the game, coach? Most aren't going to say that. Especially when you're talking about a situation where they're experiencing something that doesn't happen too often and may never happen again, for them at least, right? What is this, the second Women's Royal Rumble? And how many more matches does Beth Phoenix have left in her? She had to retire before because her body was banged up. What do you think's going to, I mean, come on. Let's come on, stop it. They let her continue the match. And my question is, did anyone consider the potential concussion? When they were quote unquote checking her out, what did that entail? Because I don't think she rolled out of the ring at any point. So did anybody actually see the wound to properly assess whether or not she should have still been in that match? She had a big glob of red in the back of her mountain of hair because the blood was there. And at one point, it was just pouring, man. It was dripping all over the place. Well, she's tough, man. She's real tough. That's how they do. No, that's not how they're supposed to do. We know about head trauma. We know that come on. We know better than that. So it just, I don't know. It seems a little poor taste in my opinion. Seems like an unnecessary risk on the WWE's part. I just don't understand why they would do it. Have her roll out of the ring, underneath the ring, so she doesn't go over the rope, so she's not out of the match technically. Track her out properly. I don't know what the hell they did. It's a whole other story. But you look at a guy like Big Vito who gets a hard time for bringing up these concussion issues. And it's like, I don't know, man. In this whistleblower, tell the truth, speak truth to power society, it's just amazing the people who we choose to support and the people who we refuse to support, right? See, to me, somebody who is speaking truth about something as significant as head trauma, something that we all acknowledge is a thing in the profession that he's in, or at least he was in, we know that's a thing. Why do we look at this guy and a few others like him as less than, or, you know, like whatever they have to say doesn't matter? Potentially, you know, exposing their home addresses and making fun of the fact that they're trying to bring awareness to a pretty significant issue. I don't get it. And I went online. I went on Twitter and I looked up Chris Harrington's Twitter account and I saw some of the posts he made about the concussion lawsuit. And look, this guy does his research and he gets these documents and he analyzes stuff. I got no problems with that. That's an extension of media as far as I'm concerned. I like that. I like to consume data. I want information. I like analysis too. Explain to me what I'm looking at here. That's great. But even one of the posts, you said, well, you know, the WWE lawyer McDevitt, it's funny that he called Vito a jobber in a document, which McDevitt did use that terminology. It's just embarrassing, by the way. That's a whole other story. I just don't get it. What the hell did Big Vito LaGrazzo do that was so bad that people are treating him this way? Is it because he's calling attention to a major issue? I don't know. Some of you out there want to claim roid rage on the whole Benoit stuff. I don't know. Look at his brain. Like the whole Aaron Hernandez thing. They said he had the brain of an old man. That's interesting. I don't know. I'm going to tell you right now, though, I'm not going to stop talking about this stuff because I think that we need to get to the bottom of it. Treat them like human beings. Care about their safety and well-being. That doesn't mean we need to wrap them in bubble wrap. I understand. It's a physical job. Don't get me wrong here. It's a physical job. But damn it, when one of them is talking about an issue like concussions, like potential CTE, long-range brain issues, I think they deserve our audience, right? Especially if we were cheering them on when they're getting bashed upside the head with chairs and crap. Come on. Come on. Just something to think about. I want to thank my guests again. Brad Shepard, the well-respected Lovell Porter. You can catch me on YouTube, right? SoundCloud. What is that? It's not iTunes anymore. It's AOL Podcasts. You know, they rebranded that thing. AOL Podcasts. Okay. Stitcher Radio app, all that good stuff. I don't remind you folks enough. Hit that subscribe button. Please, do that. Hit that subscribe button. Send me a rating. That's another thing, too. Let's refresh our ratings. We got some ratings in there. Let's refresh that. You know? I really appreciate everyone who listens every week. It's great. Good stuff. I talk to a lot of you as well. You spread the word about the show. Feel free. Send in some ratings and all that good stuff. Continue to spread the word. Appreciate that. Before I let you go, I just want to give people were asking, you know, because I did it a couple weeks ago and they were saying, hey, Duke, where was our smoothie of the week recipe, right? Because I keep messing around with this Navita's organic stuff and, you know, that maca powder, which is so good. Just a teaspoon. You don't need more than a teaspoon. Just put a teaspoon. Stuff's strong. But I've been messing around with that maca powder, and I said, okay, so I got another smoothie of the week recipe. I'll leave you with this, right? You ready? Get your teaspoon of that Navita's Organics. Get their maca powder, just a teaspoon. Get your cream. Oh, you didn't see this coming, right? Get your cream or a dairy alternative. If you got almond milk or something like that, it's fine. But I used some cream. Throw in your mangoes. Oh, yes. Pineapple. You already got your cream in there. You already got your Navita's Organics maca powder in there. And you ready for this last one? You're not going to see this one coming. Peach. Throw some peach in there. Right? I like to make sure they're all frozen. I like my frozen fruits because it makes it a little, you know, like a little slushy type of deal a little bit. I like that. Plus the smoothie's extra cold when you do that. But blend that sucker up. Blend that sucker up. Pour it in your favorite cup. Stick a straw in it, which is very important, and enjoy. That's it. Very simple. Keep in mind the Navita's Organics, all their products. They got all kinds of powders, whether we're talking about the cacao, the maca. They even got the different teas, you know, the matcha tea, turmeric tea, all that good stuff there. But there's so much you can do with it, right? You go on their website, you see they make cakes and cookies and all kinds of crazy stuff you can do with it. All delicious stuff. But that's your smoothie of the week, folks. And I'll keep that going since it's been such a big hit. You know, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Gotta stay healthy, man. Why not? But it has to taste good. I'm not going to sacrifice good taste. I want good taste. I want it to taste good. That's right. Until next week, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others. Take it away, Tony Schiavone.
This is Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Wrestling.